As you know, the campaign in the Western Desert was one of the great turning points, and when I say turning, I don't mean swivelling on a heel load. I mean points of a great mass of thropers course on their own quirt. Oh yes. You had your desert rats, and you had your Rommel Africa Corps. And the two sides face by face and looking across this vast expanse of the trickly sand there. Dunes which grew up and the wind freshness came there. North Africa's coasty. Now what happened was this. With the 8th Army bringing up its armour, Rommel saw that his only chance was a sweeping movement here and there. So that the British lines of communication were cut. They were followed and slitty through. Result, our flanks were exposing. But what Rommel forgot was this. Montgomery forgot it too, but this doesn't matter. When, however, the British infantry started using the heavy mortar board, and I don't mean by this mortar board we had the academic feathers now, I mean the mortar boards on the pom-pom. The entire German army turned around on the rotator of their own Fundy-moker and marched backwards into the teeth of the greatest artillery bombarding mofos having seen. But before a decision could be reached, and let's face it, there was much nose-to-nose and chatty-chatty by all eardrums under this nightlight. Night fell. This meant that it was very dark. Very, very dark. When the second day of the battle arose, the German tanks made their first appearance, firing from all cylinders. They attacked the British line, which bendy, but didn't break it. Thanks to the great fighting spirit, 2 pints each man per bottle. During that terrible second day, which was the day that followed the first, if you understand my meal, hundreds of tanks were destroyed there and spreading out their great flanges off the wheel surface, and the tracks went top and floating there all over the field, largely owing to the minefields. Which were all linked to the booby-trapper of the English hard commode. Oh yes. But Rommel, however, was no dummkopf. Oh. No, you may chuckload. Rommel was never a deep supper of a dummkopf with the deep brain that he had to serve people working out this fat load. Now, what he did was to attack Monty with a surprise move up in his rear. And anyone who has a supper out the rear in this mode, which Monty would suffer with, Rommel's needs to have a supper load out of another Brody, or suffering. The rules of international warfare specifically state that this is not done. Oh no. This is the law. It's just not cricky done for anyone who works out these rules of international law. Use a dagger is sharp and stuffing it in, all green, laughing and chuckling, you turn it round. But then Rommel, of course, being the Panzer leader, initiated a 2-pronged attack. This threatened the British salient. And this is a salient feature of all the battlers, of course. But not eventually. Fortunately, Monty brought of his main forceps arms with a repeating rifle. And By saying that, I don't mean a repeating recoilless rifle, which is people who shooting there and it doesn't bounce back and shove you up the shoulder. Now, and then, as the panzers buckled, under the weight of the Shermans, he brought up his Churchill with Randolph in the van. He was, of course, too big to stuff into one of the tanks. Now, the battle was not finally decided until the third day, when the Fifth Army, having found itself facing its own infantry. You see, up came the hammer and down went the lid. With the result that when the Germans finally did open up fire, bang, flip and toddy, there was nobody there. Just a great void and the bullets all flopping and ricocheting against the clouds and sweet nothing Fanny hoed. Of course it was a trap, and the Germans fell into it. British Air Force. The British Air Force had given our force the hair covering, all hovery over this bad load, protecting any slight movement. Top down came the bullets and the enemy scrolled. Oh, yeah. And Ronald had no choice but to throw in all his force in the last desperate attempt to break it for this ring and spread it out throughout the corners to be heard. Fortunately, Monty brought up his part of this crucial stage and all was well. Finally, the smoky of the battle cleared it half. And it was found that not a single one had survived the scissor smooth mould, which ranks as one of the most brilliant in the history of the British Army most. Oh, it'll go down year after far in the history books from the children of Kingdom Come and Soul, Father and Soul. But had it not been for the high explosive bombardier, perhaps the battle. Yes, and I say, perhaps the battle might have gone the other way, which would return him toward Egypt, Cairo, and Minaret all standing. As Winston Churchill said, it was the hinge of fate. I think one lesson we can learn from this is that when the enemies face it, you have to face it up too. And without a superior muzzload of velocity, the only thing is to feint. And when you come it round, trittly how back a gale, in the far distant look it up with the eyes pointed to the heavenly. Strategic thorkus in a mobile backload. All does, of course, and that's why we won at Alamein. Oh, yes. And now, to celebrate from this, I would ask you as to gather all company all together to give a hipper hip hip hurrah-dee, hipper hipper, hurrah! Oh, hipper hip it ho, hurrah! A quarter hip half, oh, parade! Oh, hurrah! Oh. As you well know, the Stirling area is doing a deep suffering most from a very acute shrinkage of the budgie. I don't mean the budgie in the cave, that's the real budgie, with a colour gold there sitting in form and suffering his most and scratching his head bowl on what can we doom. Oh. And that is why it's imperative for this country to go over to the decimal coinage. Oh, yes. Now, apart from reducing the overall purchasing power of the consumeroidy, now I'll explain that later because we can stitch up one eardrobe because the other doesn't matter, this will make it easier for us to gain an entry into the common market. Now, this is a metric throw which you put in a point dot. This is something not as a vulgar praxiode, because after all, this is a bit archaic for that. Oh no. De Gaulle lava by the shouty. Now, the principle of the decimal coinage is basically very, very simple. Every pound will become a 10 shilling, which reminds us of the old saw. The Chancellor of the Exchequer mows, counting half your blessing, a pound look after itself. The question then arises, how will you know how much? This is quite simple. Right. The present 240 pence to the power load, divide by 2, put it in the decimal point, adjust him under the corpse and the currency and the bank rate rising form, add a 0.2 of a pen to every shilling, turn the result in the half crowns, originally 8 to the power load, turn it up a low dowder, stuff it in the bocker, print your own to Willie Claxton up in the atty. Of course, There won't be any shillets under the new system. We probably won't have the penny load either. But one thing you can say about the decimal coiny system is that there is a point to it all. And don't think it's a facetious when there's a point dotty, stuffing it in move, therefore they're getting the right value. Oh no. The budgetary system will adjust itself accordingly, and all the salaries will immediately subject to the levies at source for the Gandhi. Oh. Now, the important thing to remember is this, that once we get the decimal system going, the national debt will go into the trade gabber, never be seen a gale, while the exports halvey in the cost and doubly up in their value. Ah, yes. But they will rise and then be multiplied by the number of times Mr. Callihohan appears on the telephone, or the square goggle box of the glass eye knot. Oh, yeah. One last thing. If when changing your pound sterling into the new units, don't worry if you get any small change left over. The Inland Revenue will see to it for you on the time honorary principle of the form-filled pocket to the public spending spreel. Nick all the nickery and bob your hincode. Any worries about this, address your inquiries to the Honourable Crethus Cupro Nickley, Volters, Duke of Heed, NW through. I'll repeat that. The Right Honourable Vicro Cupro Nickley Thrub, the Volters, which is a public house here on the left-hand side, got off that through on the left, Bank of Heed, North Doe Thrubed. Oh yes, thank you. What I would like to do here is to advise the general public on the things to look for when they go to this year's and the Moti show, whether it be Earl's Caucus or the Olympiad, where you pay your money, earn tile, clibbery, and in you go and work up a load out of the aisles. Now, first, you must find a car. As you know, a car, 4 wheels, one on each corm, except a through-wheeler there with motorcycle and trittly how. Then the heights of Olympia soon fall into place on the running board of the cost of adjustments to the retail price. See, this is if you're going to buy one. Now, the most important thing about a new Modelo is the strength of the link between the rear, and I'm getting on the technical, if you'll please excuse this, the plunging sprocket and the front wheel skiddery. If you're interested in the front wheel skiddery, the modern flat dispers type with a little pinchy most high the side is better than the drum type breakers, and very much because wet it dries it up with a little cloud of steam and skid it on the left hand side. And you see what happens in an inferior model is this, that the brake assessment adjustee slot falls in the poppy spring, this is P-O Poppa P-T, oh dear, I can even spell it, but that's the best for your ear. And if you happen to be driving at high speeds, you get the crash program with the slidey rate of the insurance firm, all working in the compensator's policy as they nip smartly out the back door. Now, some of you, on the other hand, might prefer an independent coily spring suspension, and if I could explode this away to make it as a separate curve, it wasn't meant to be a facetious thought because it's very important as a way to help the very fine cormery for a separate spring-loaded independent skirt. Now, you have a large spring at each corm, so if the camber of the Rome, as you're taking it in the corm and drive into it, so there's an equal and opposite. This is the pressure. And if you're left buttock on the seat for a mobile weight for it, no, I'm serious for that, because it does do an equibalance, and this is the original, if there's an equipoise which equibalance, does that for the 4 wheels free, and most of them are doing it. Oh yes. Now, a word of warning here. Remember that the internal combustible carriage wheel locomotion for the control arm, and if you know which arm I mean, you've got none of the civil, because that's more than throws inside the average peatload spine. Oh yes. Petrol consumption is a very ugly disease. We can only be cured on account of the bulk of Aquabold and the far-flummers oil wells which happen to come in the mid-load of Nigeria. But you men must buy a bicycle loader. This is the thing, because if you have a saddlebag assembly of that and stuff your lunch in the throw, and well, what joy for the country, and whipping it up a low down, and your knee clavers all very, very, very red. No. Never let the hydraulic fluid sink deep into the big end of the rack piston nut assembly, because if you do, it's a question of the tie rods. Oh yeah. Now, if you have one of those expense account petrol tanks with the needle connected to the deductible allowance, you know, for the old Bentley, you want to see this on your panel, giving you a quite indicate, and nowadays it's done through a computer. But I wouldn't do this if I were you. I don't say you shouldn't. Oh no. But keeping in mind the state of the road tax, it's bound to be a case of jammy today, jammy yesterday, and whatever you fancy at the wheel load rotating. Yes. And regarding the motor car, but finally, if you happen to be buying a new car this year, whether it's a through-wheel, four-wheel, or a side-wheel Krupf, you know, many of them run on the cycle, especially on the ice, don't commit yourself unless you're quite confident that the sedan coupe on the Mini Plus amendments are worth the extra outlay in the parking meter kick and run, eh? Oh no. It's £2. It is. The kick it and rummy was your own stride. Something's done that in the jack pocket. Awful all about the six blowing going turn up as close. And as far as I'm concerned, it's £2 every time. And you know, nobody will deny that the ankle shafts terminate in the bevel gear, connected by the several smaller woes which mount on the radial axis of the differential housing side and the ring gear. And this is absolutely true. And in most of the manuals will tell you, if you look it up a low doubt. And that, in a nutshell, is why the rising prices of the new models comes in a great flexibility-wise to the consumer. Of course, there is the question of the status symbol with the fishtail chassis overhang, and how many have that very fine protrudy stuff out the back fishtail. It looks as if you've got 34 cylinders, 94 exhaust pipe, and one little quick overload downer. Yes. Well, when the piston rings through the factory, take your pick of the models. Count yourself lucky if you're running out before you're running in over the pedestrian into Labour or J-pole on the traffic island. And you must have suffered like that, as many often do. Oh, I've seen many of them. Poor old lady slip bonk on the focus there and up and say, sorry, I got in the way of the motor car and off.
I now call upon the delegate from the lower riding of Krupfold.
Friends and fellow delegates, I've come here today representing what we stand for at the present time, both in the national and the foreign policy of that. Oh yes. Because here we have to send to Whitehall those people who have called me Smown and given us on and standing for the people stand for and the current spread for it. And I would like to, as I was saying, the first thing I want to talk about is our council houses. Now, why should we subsidise private owners to the extent which prevents us from becoming owners of property which has already been paid for, not only by them but by ourselves? I think it's disgusting.
Public schools.
That compulsory purchase order put in force in 1934 has already made 6 times over. You must say that over there, but I couldn't listen to balderdash which Parliament, the Prime Minister's starting a balderdash. Number 2, building land, building land for urban and industrial development. Not only should owners be paid in full, but farmers in particular should receive adequate compensation. Recompense. You may touch on them, may open it, pouring you coming in on this. For roads, effect on modern transport through their farms, and in particular the disturbance of the livestock and the horrible diesel fumes are snuffing them. About the government's policy. Foreign, here now, this is someone which is going to say, what you're going to sow within the foreign market, you may well ask that for.
Get out.
I would like to offer the goal of subsidy on all the French imports to Britain, to be paid for by the consumer, of course, and give him a seat on the upper chamber. He can then guide the destiny of the economic community in ever-rotating circles until it disappears up the fundamental heaven. Fellow delegates, thank you for your wonderful attention. Thank you, fellow delegates, for all your questions. And thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much, brothers, one and all. Let's have our workers' anthem now. We'll begin. Grow which bless these people.